Bless you.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Shri
theme. And no matter what you're doing, whether you're reading or you're participating in the programs or whether there's some festival going on, they all seem to coincide in some kind of interesting fourth dimensional way. So this section of Śrimad Bhāgavatam talks about ability, and or he's speaking actually, he's describing the qualities of sadhus. And this is very famous verse today. This is Canto 3, chapter 21, text 21. Titikshava karunika.
Titikshava karunika.
Titikshava karunika.
Titikshava karunika. Suridah sarvadehinam. Ajata shatravah shanta. Ajata shatravah shanta. Sadhavah sadhubhushana. Sadhava sadhubhushana. Tikshava karunika. Suridah sarvadehinam. Ajata shatava shanta. Sadhava sadhubhushana. Tikshava karunika. Suridah sarvadehinam. Ajata shatravah shanta. Sadhavah sadhubhushana. Titikshava karunika. Suridah sarvadehinam. Ajata shatravah shanta. Sadhavah sadhubhushana. Titikshava karunika. Suridah sarvadehinam. Ajata shatravah shanta. Sadhavah sadhubhushana. Titikshava karunika. Suridah sarvadehinam. Ajata shatravah shanta. Sadhavah sadhubhushana. Titikshava karunika. Suridah sarvadehinam. Suridah sarvadehinam. Ajata shatravah shanta. Sadhavah sadhubhushana. Tikshava karunika. Suridah sarvadehinam. Shanta. Sadhavah sadhubhushana. Suridah. Friendly. Sarvadehinam.
All living entities. Ajata shatravah. Inimical to none. Shanta. Peaceful. Sadhavah. Abiding by scriptures. Sadhubhushana. Adorned with sublime characteristics. So the translation of this verse reads as follows. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, friendly to all living entities. He has no enemy. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. So we The symptoms of a sadhu
The symptoms of a sadhu
are that he is tolerant,
are that he is tolerant,
merciful and friendly
merciful and friendly
to all living entities.
to all living entities.
He has no enemies.
He has no enemies.
He is peaceful.
He is peaceful.
Abides by the scriptures.
He abides by the scriptures,
And all his characteristics are sublime.
and all his characteristics are sublime.
The sadhu is described above, is a devotee of the Lord. His concern, therefore, is to enlighten people in devotional service to the Lord. That is his mercy. He knows that without devotional service to the Lord, human life is spoiled. A devotee travels all over the country from door to door preaching. Be Krishna conscious. Be a devotee of Lord Krishna. Don't spoil your life in simply fulfilling your animal propensity. Human life is meant for self-realization called Krishna consciousness. These are the preachings of the sadhu. He is not satisfied with his own liberation. Always thinks about others. He is the most compassionate personality toward all fallen souls. One of his qualifications, therefore, is karunaka, great mercy to fallen souls. While engaged in preaching, he has to meet with so many opposing elements, and therefore, the sadhu, or devotee of the Lord, has to be very tolerant. Someone may ill-treat him. Someone may ill-treat him because the conditioned souls are not prepared to receive the transcendental knowledge of devotional service. They do not like it. That is their conceit. The sadhu has a thankless task of impressing upon them the importance of devotional service. Sometimes devotees are personally attacked with violence.
Everyone, the cats, the dogs, trees, etc. He treats all living entities in such a way that they can ultimately get salvation from material engagement. Can be more friendly than a sadhu in relieving a conditioned soul. A sadhu is calm, and he quietly and peacefully follows the principles of Scripture. A sadhu means one who follows the principles of Scripture and at the same time is a devotee of the Lord. One who actually follows the principles of Scriptures must be a devotee of God, because all the Shastras instruct us to obey the orders of the personality of Godhead. Sadhu, therefore, means follower of scriptural injunctions and a devotee of the Lord. All these characteristics are prominent in a devotee. A devotee develops all the good qualities of the demigods, whereas a non-devotee, even though academically qualified, has no actual good qualities or good characteristics. According to to the standard of transcendental realization. Tikshava Kurunika Suridam Sarvadehinam Ajatra Satrava Shanta Sadhava Sadhubhushanaha. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies, he is peaceful, he abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. So, this very nicely describes Prabhupada's characteristics. He came to the Western world. He was sent by his spiritual master. And when he got here, there was no welcome wagon or mayor of a city or somebody greeting him with great pomp and giving him the key to the city or something like that. He arrived and nobody took notice. And immediately he went to Butler, Pennsylvania. And there he spent about a month or something like that. And then he came to New York City. And in 11 years, he started what we now know as the Krishna Consciousness Movement, or it was known as ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So this changed the lives of so many people. If we undid that event, Prabhupada coming to New York City or coming to the Western world, suddenly we'd all jump out of this room. We'd be somewhere else in no good situation. Because generally, living entities have absolutely no understanding that what they're doing with their life is terrible. They're wasting it for the most part. Even people who are, not everybody, but many people who are involved, even in some religious practice, are only involved in a very superficial way. So as a result, they are not making progress very much. And certainly when they leave their body, they will take birth again. This material world is kind of like a grade school system that when you fail third grade, you have to repeat third grade. So we all failed time and time and time again, and we're repeating the course, but we don't learn the lesson, we just repeat the course. But someone has to come and punch through to us. And, I was thinking about today, since this is the appearance day of Srila Prabhupada, and many devotees will soon be offering their Vyasa Pujas, offerings to Srila Prabhupada. It's a time to remember the Supreme Lord. And it's also a time to remember what he gave us. Well, what did he give us? He gave us so many specifically important and different things, He gave us, first thing I would mention is so many volumes of books, 60 books or something on that order. No one else, as far as I know of, even in Vaishnava history, translated so many different books into a single language with a single Siddhanta. So that's there. And that's a very important thing. It's a Siddhanta, it's a way of looking at the Vedic information in a very systematic way, putting it all together. So that's one thing he gave us. He gave us ISKCON, which is an institution where devotees work together for cooperatively reclaiming their own lives and reaching out to people who have yet to take part in spiritual life. It's a very different thing. So we've got a group of books and an organization. Then we have the actual morning program and the whole process of Krishna consciousness. That's even yet a different kind of thing. We have a system where you can put yourself in one end of the hopper in the machine and boom, 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 chugga, 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 boom. You pop out as a more purified devotee. You know, you come in very rough and rumble, and you wind up becoming more purified. And there's a system to it. And, you know, he gave us his pastimes, which people can see today. Some of them are on video, some of them are on audio. And he gave us his way of capturing the devotees' hearts. All these are distinct and different things. And it shows how a single individual can come into the world, and as is a sadhu is karunika, that's the main word. He is merciful. He's merciful because he gives Krishna consciousness, and as mentioned today in this verse. Sometimes people don't like Krishna consciousness. Maybe some of you have experienced this feature, this interesting feature of the external world, that you try to give Krishna to people, and people will say, hey, that's a great idea, thanks, you know, I'm going to start doing that right away, you know. What they say instead, we won't repeat it, but usually very different. And as Prabhupada says, it's because they have no understanding of what they really need or what is really going to happen to them in the long run, because they don't have any perspective. They don't have any perspective at all. So I was thinking that Krishna consciousness is an external thing, and it's also an internal thing. And we can't really neglect either one of those aspects of it. I was just looking, if you look in chapter 5 of Bhagavad Gita, you see how Krishna speaks a lot about within, and that mysterious world that's inside. Now, in the Western world, we're not used to that world. We don't think about it very much. We don't go within. We don't know how to go within. It's a mysterious world. It's dark. It's formless for the most part. But it's a very important place. And the other day, our Bhakti Ryan was asking about the idea of trance, you know, and I was looking at the word. And in Sanskrit, the word trance is samadhi. That's the word. It is a state of mind, you know, we could call it in our modern terminology an altered state of consciousness, because it is not ordinary consciousness. Ordinary consciousness is distracted and befuddled. We are, you know, got a lot of inputs coming in, we're juggling them and thinking about this and flopping over here and flopping over there and, you know, going back and forth. This is ordinary consciousness. But samadhi is not like that. It's a consciousness that's razor focused on the Supreme Lord. Most of us don't experience that. I certainly don't. But such a consciousness is possible. And Prabhupada came to give us gradual baby steps on how to work towards that consciousness. And I bring this up because I think the most important thing Prabhupada gave us was this siddhanta, this understanding of how to create a movement, how to fix our lives, how to work together cooperatively as a movement, and how to fix our lives. So we understand it properly, we'll create a movement and we'll fix our lives. We don't understand it properly, we won't really create a cohesive movement, and our lives will be only partially fixed. So what is Krishna consciousness? What is a advanced devotee? I was thinking about this the other day. Is an advanced devotee the devotee that distributes the most books on Sankirtan? Is that an advanced devotee? The most advanced devotee? Is Yeah, some people may say, is an advanced devotee the person with the highest position in ISKCON? Is that an advanced devotee? It is, is an advanced devotee the person who performs the most austerities? Is an advanced devotee the person who can quote the most slokas? Is an advanced devotee the person with the largest amount of followers? Is an advanced devotee a person who knows the most intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna? So we can ask these questions. And it's hard to say that there isn't something to a person being able to do any of these things. But at the same time, Krishna consciousness is many things. And being austere or being constantly physically engaged externally in work, or quoting slokas, or being able to speak nicely, all these things are good. But there's an external process of Krishna consciousness, what we're doing with our body, and there's an internal process of Krishna consciousness, how we relate to what we're doing with our body. So this is a much more mysterious realm. And I think sometimes we get lost. We don't really take that aspect of Krishna consciousness so deeply and seriously. But it's an important one. You don't have to be a genius or some kind of Vedic scholar to start. You can quiz yourself on why you're doing what you're doing. You just kind of stop at any moment in the day and think, what am I doing now? Why am I doing it? Hey, Krishna, you know, this is what I'm doing right now. What do you think about it? You know, as it says here, he's friendly to all living entities. You know, the sadhu is friendly. This is something I keep trying to remind myself of, because I think I'm the worst offender here, that, you know, trying to be very open and friendly to everybody, knowing that even if somebody's really seriously off the path, you know, that still in some way they're still connected to Krishna, and some way or another they will come to Krishna, maybe in this lifetime or a future one or whatever it may be, and to always have a positive outlook on other people. So these are qualities of a sadhu. Of course, Prabhupada had these qualities, and because he was really focused within. You can't really fake the inside or the internal part of Krishna consciousness. You can fake the external part. And that's usually what passes, you know. We're good at that. We know how to fake being humble. We know how to fake being always engaged in service. We know how to fake being austere. We know how to fake being learned. We know how to fake being friendly. We know all these things, and in one sense, we have to fake them, but internally, we need to, at the same time, try to actually come to feel those things internally. And if we are working with Krishna, we're thinking about Krishna, as we're externally moving in the external world, it will have a bigger impact. We will come to recognize that we're trying to connect this world out here with this world in here, the mysterious, dark, shapeless, odd world within our heart that we generally don't think about. Now, some devotees just get lost in the externals. They move the body, and if we, do external devotional service, that's still purifying. It still has an effect. But if we neglect completely the internal world, we wind up being kind of a show bottle. We wind up being kind of an externally, what everybody would consider a devotee, but there's, something missing somewhere along the line, something not quite there. But if we think about from the internal point of view that this is also an internal process, Krishna says it in chapter 5, so many things. One who is always thinking within, enjoying the bliss from within. Of course, these are high benchmarks and these are high attainments, but they can be achieved. They can be achieved. And the process is just to really think about. Of course, you can be too much within too. Sometimes devotees are not doing anything at all out here, and they're just meditating within, It's a rare person who's actually qualified to do that. I mean, there are, definitely our line has people who are like that, who are so fixed on Krishna within that they essentially didn't do much of anything except sit in their room and cry and stuff like that, Most of us are not on that level, but still at the same time, this understanding or this work or this effort to cultivate not only external devotional service, but internal. What is my attitude right now? How am I doing? And we can be honest, sometimes we're wiped out, sometimes we're whatever it is, sometimes we are emotionally charged and we know we shouldn't be. We've got an emotion that we shouldn't have and we don't know what to do with it. We're working with it in some kind or another. Okay, these things are real, and it doesn't help to pretend something that exists doesn't exist. It's always better to recognize that something that does exist, and maybe recognize that it's not healthy or good, but we still have to deal with it in some kind of way. So, in the end, I keep thinking this is one of those things that Hansarupa quotes this, purport often, this one, Bhagavad Gita 10:4, where Prabhupada says that knowledge means knowing what is matter and what is spirit. Simple, right? Knowing what is matter and what is spirit. And then intelligence is seeing things in the proper perspective. Because if we don't have perspective, we can know what is knowledge and what is spirit. What is matter and what is spirit. But we kind of confuse what's important and what's not so important. Not everything is of equal importance. And if anybody's actually serious and they look at what we find in our books of what Krishna consciousness is, there's so many rules and regulations, what you eat, how you eat, when you eat, what hand you use, not circumambulating in front of the deity. A lot of these things that we never follow. Not wearing blue in front of the deity. These are, everybody, these things are routinely ignored in our movement. And there's scads of them, and sometimes a person will laser focus on one of those minor things, and for them, that'll be the cutting edge between somebody being a true devotee and somebody being, not really a real devotee. But not everything is on the same level. Some things are far more important. Whether somebody chants their rounds or doesn't is not in the same category of if sometimes somebody eats with their left hand or forgets to chant a Gayatri or something like that. These are not quite on the same level. All these things are important. And if anyone's honest, we see that there's no way to follow, nobody follows absolutely every one of these strictures that are there. And why are they there? We know that everything is there in the Vedic literatures because it's there to help us remember Krishna. Smartavya satatam vishnor vishmartavya najatu chit sarvavidi nisedyasyu etayor eva kinkara. So always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. All the rules and regulations of the scriptures are hanging on these two principles. Always remember and never forget. So for somebody, they may focus their consciousness on Krishna by being very detailed, breaking ekadasi exactly at the right moment, and following this practice and being sure that everything they do is according to a rigid schedule, et cetera, et cetera. But for another person, that really won't work. The way that they think, the way that they live just doesn't open itself to that. And so it's always easy to judge Krishna consciousness by what's easy for us, what works for us. And we think, so if someone else is not doing it, then there must be some problem with them. But Prabhupada wanted us to get an understanding of what is matter and spirit, and also the seeing things in proper perspective. So some things are really deal breakers in spiritual life, and some things are one of those myriads of things that we know we should do, that we try to do. And for some people, that's how they really focus on Krishna and how they prove to Krishna that they're thinking about him. And for other people, they do it in some other way, so they may not be so persnickety about all these various details. And in this way, we have a sense of what's more important and what's less important. Because as time moves on, and we see this already happening in our movement, there are people who will focus on some minor detail. And for them, a person who does not have that same detail in their mind in exactly the same way is someone who has lost Krishna consciousness. They've lost the plot. They are no longer really devotees. They're fake. And this is something that happens in movements, and it happens in religious organizations quite commonly. I first read about it maybe about 15 years ago or something. I was reading some Christian book about, it was I think something to do with the philokalia, or the, in Slavic language it's called dobrotolubye. But it was talking about how one person was coming to a particular group of people who were worshiping, and he saw that they were doing it in the new way. The church had decided to update things. I don't know whether this was when we had the ecumenical council that decided to put the entire Latin Mass into English. For those who come from the Catholic tradition, that was a big step. The whole church decided, instead of the Mass being entirely in Latin, which no one could understand, that they would put it in English. And some people thought, well, that was it. They've lost the plot. That now it's no longer in Latin, therefore it's all bogus. So sometimes these minor things like this become the way a person decides what is and isn't Krishna conscious. And so if we take a minor point like this and we suddenly make it the deal breaker of whether a person is or is not Krishna consciousness, our movement will fragment. It's already fragmenting on exactly these principles, these kinds of things. So we have to understand what are the most important things. And so Prabhupada gave us an entire philosophy. He gave us a point of view. And if we read that and we're trying to understand it, then we can get a sense of how to see things in perspective. And of course, this is not an easy thing to grasp. But if we make an effort to study the literature, we associate with devotees. And this is another important thing, that here, this idea of associating with devotees is key and very much stressed. That if we associate with devotees, we hear from them, we try to understand, then we become like them. But of course, we have to repeatedly understand and repeatedly associate. In this way, we eventually become purified. So we can take and deliver to the future what Prabhupada actually gave us, instead of deciding the easy path to just focus on some detail. And that detail for us is, if somebody breaks a codicy at the right moment in time, they're actually a bona fide devotee. And if somebody doesn't do it, they're bogus, Or if, there's so many examples of this kind of thinking. It's much easier to reduce Krishna consciousness to one external principle: the person who distributes the most books, the person who's the biggest ISKCON leader, the person who's most follower, the person who quotes the most slokas, the person who is able to speak the nicest, the person who knows the most intimate pastimes. It's easy to focus Krishna consciousness on just one of those things, but Krishna consciousness is really all of those things. It's really a comprehensive thing, and then we have to try to put things into perspective. So this is why we have to associate with each other, listen to other people's expressions of their understanding, and try to read Prabhupada's books and understand them for ourselves. And as we go into the future, we'll be able to deliver one ISKCON, or at least basically one ISKCON. There'll be always shades of gray, but there'll be one basic ISKCON. And that's what Prabhupada wanted more than anything else. That not that we have temples and everybody is coming into those temples and it's basically like a Hindu movement or something at a certain point. Not that we just have some kind of sangha and everything goes, you can say anything you want. Most Hindu temples are like that. Not like that. Not that we have a system where, people are constantly bickering and quarreling. There may be discussion about things, but ultimately, that discussion should be in a good-hearted way, in a very nice way. All right, so the sadhu is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to living beings. We should try to emulate those qualities. We should try to not only engage in external service, which is important, but also follow internally this concept of what are we doing, how are we doing it, what is our motivations, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so I'll stop here. Are there any questions or comments? And yeah, do we have the microphones? They somewhere?
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Do we have
Hare Krishna.
volume?
Hare Krishna. I'll just keep it away. Yeah. Haribo.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it says friendly, but I think that word friend might need a definition in Krishna consciousness because it's very, very misrepresented and misused, at least from what I've seen in my life. So what is a friend exactly within the context of
Yeah.
spirituality?
Actually, I had sort of planned to talk about that, but I had to leave something out. But I'll do a quick review of it, you know. The idea is, of course, that most of the time we judge friends and enemies by a person who helps me to get sense gratification and who gives me sense gratification. Such a person is a friend. And a person who impedes my sense gratification or takes away things that I find favorable in my sense gratification, that person is an enemy. You know, but Krishna consciousness redefines that word completely in recognizing that a person who is genuinely my well-wisher, helps me to engage in Krishna consciousness, and is sincerely wanting to help me. Such a person is a friend. And a person who is encouraging me in material life, such a person is an enemy, you know. So it's a very different definition. When we get involved in Krishna consciousness, when we engage in Krishna consciousness, eventually we will make that shift of thinking, you know, that sometimes we see that people who give us a lot of trouble are actually helping us. And as a matter of fact, there was a book that I once read that had to do with, you know, that said that life is like a college course, and difficult people are the teachers. So, you know, we learn more from our interaction with people who cause us difficulty than we learn from people who are pleasant sometimes. We may not learn what they're wanting to teach us, but we learn something from that interaction. And we also learn what it is that gets to us, you know, which we wouldn't know unless somebody got to us, you know. So that's an important thing. In this way, I'm a very envious, selfish person, so that when, you know, I read, there's this one wonderful prayer I think Prahlad makes in the 7th canto about, you know, may all envious people be pacified, you know, and I think, you know, I want all good for everyone. I think like that, and if I think like that and practice like thinking like that, then in general that will filter down through my whole mood, you know. So it's again, we've got the external stuff. We have to, you know, change the oil in the car. We have to be sure the doors are locked. We have to, you know, be sure the prasadam comes out on time. But at the same time, what's going on in here, you know, as we're doing it? You know, oftentimes still that's devotional service, but if you pay attention to what's going on inside, you can make a lot more progress. I think Jenny had a question over here. Oh, yeah. It's gone off. We've got the dead battery blues. Who did? Oh.
And he was talking about how sadhu means to cut.
Right.
So sometimes the process of spiritual life is very heavy and it's not always fun and easy or nice. And so I was thinking it's interesting that this verse specifically says a sadhu, someone who cuts.
Mhm.
Is friendly, all
Right, right.
merciful, and no enemies, and all these like nice qualities.
Right, right.
And so I was thinking that sometimes also we go into spiritual life and it is very heavy. And we meet personalities who are very heavy and they expect a lot from us and they're, they chastise us or whatever. But I was thinking that too, maybe how, and this is, I don't think that you can comment on, how important it is to prioritize our personal relationships with the devotees. Because it seems like a lot of these qualities have to do with the relationships. You're merciful to someone, you tolerate someone's, whatever thing that they're messing up,
Mm.
and especially talking about the details of like following spirit, like nectar of devotion has all those details. But then it's always remember Krishna, never forget. And so how important it is to just keep our relationships with the devotees nice, so that we can encourage each other to just keep going one by one, even if it's not perfect or whatever. So I was just wondering if you could comment on that. Sadhu means to cut, and then
Right, right. Well, there are different levels of relationships, The guru and disciple relationship is usually a heavier relationship where the guru may certainly and usually does cut, because he needs to say something, sometimes bluntly and sometimes point blank. But generally, I found that even gurus get a sense of what their disciple is willing to accept. There's no point in telling someone something that they're not going to do or they're going to reject. So one person was telling me that they talked to one of our ISKCON gurus, and he said that he has many disciples that he doesn't tell them what he really wants them to do because he knows they won't do it. So that means that you're limited. Now, if you're not on guru and disciple relationship, usually if you have a friendly relationship, you may have some latitude to be able to explain to somebody something that you see that maybe they should work on, but then it may not work, in which case usually we have to back off. There's not much you can do. But if you pray for people, that's where I think that we don't think about that avenue, because there's three people involved. There's Krishna, there's the person, and then there's you. The person may not want to change. And you may see that they need to change. And so you can approach Krishna and say, Krishna, I think I see this issue, and I want the best for them. You help. And so now Krishna has a reason to interfere in the situation. Otherwise, Krishna lets people do what they want to do. That's why we have free will. If somebody doesn't want Krishna, then Krishna's not going to force himself on that person. But if, say, even we meet a person on Sankirtan, when they're totally not interested or whatever it is, we can pray to Krishna, Krishna, please help this person somehow or other. And if we do that, then Krishna has a reason to get involved. And he knows what it will take. And it's not out of his scope to be able to effect a change. So that's an avenue we oftentimes don't think or don't take seriously, but we should, I think. Even I forget it when it comes up in class, and I get a chance to remember it, So it's, I think, good. All right, Krishna. Yes. Mic is not to be functional today. It had too many Hari bowls yesterday, and it's all the Hari bowls are used up in the microphone.
Yeah, I like you were talking about pedantic people, and I looked it up because I had to deal with one for an extended period of time on last show, and it was kind of cool because I realized that what you said
Hmm.
And I also noticed too that when you're dealing with someone who is antagonistic and you handle the situation in a way where you either neutralize the problem or make them feel better and help them, it ends up almost like it's like a superpower.
Right,
Most
right.
situations, if you look on the street and think about my past too, when things start heating up, it's like watching two trains going in the opposite direction. But I mean, you don't usually see that. But it's like it's about to watch a train wreck. You kind of just sit back and say it's going down. But when you can, at least the way I see it, when you can have an antagonistic situation and you feel yourself getting fired up and the other person's fired up, but you can make that split-second decision. Wait, no, hold up, let me switch this around. It's almost like a judo move. It's like crazy, and you walk away feeling like so much more. I don't know what to say. More in tune with with everything that's in the books. So it's something cool. It's hard to deal with people actually give the most advancement in my perspective because it forces you to practice what you're reading.
Yeah, I have a similar thing that when I was reading the Mahabharata, you know, there's so many stories where someone does some kind of thing to somebody else, and there's this entire epic karmic flow that comes from it, you know, like the Vasu stealing the cow from, Vishishta Muni. So they steal the cow, you know. Dio's wife decides, you know, we should have this cow because I've heard so many good things about it. So she puts her husband up to stealing it. He does, and then a whole, you know, half of the Mahabharata wouldn't have happened if that one thing, and, you know, somebody got this idea that, well, we should have this cow, you know, or, you know, somebody insults somebody, like, you know, Daksha and Shiva, you know, so Shiva's in the assembly and Daksha says all these noxious words to him, you know. And I think, am I doing the same thing? Am I also getting stewed up over some small thing, you know? How can I rise above it? Will I, you know, react over something that if I could just zoom out of the situation and not be me for suddenly, you know, and look at the situation from a larger vantage point, I think that's kind of petty. And to see it from that's what I think you're talking about. And I've had that thought a number of times from reading the Mahabharata and other literatures like that, because Bhagavad Gita or not Bhagavad Gita, but Bhāgavatam has lots of stories like that too, you know, like Shakuntala and what was the other, not Shakuntala, but there were two ladies, you know, one of them put on the wrong garment when Shiva was coming by. They were all bathing naked and, you know, they got their clothes mixed up. And because one put on the wrong outfit, the other one cursed them and, you know, it turned into a whole big thing. You think of how these petty things wind up with such a big, you know, they just expand outward and outward and outward and think, am I actually doing this kind of thing too? So it's wisdom to be able to catch something and not have it turn into a major event when it really shouldn't be. All right, so at any rate, this class has probably gone way long because it didn't start at the right time and it's not ending at the right time either. But we've got soon Vyasa Puja offerings to be made, lots of stuff to happen. So I thank you all for your kind attention. All glories to Śrimad Bhāgavatam, all glories to the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Yeah, Hare Krishna.